You have spent hours recording and publishing podcast episodes every single week, maybe every other week, maybe once a month. You are putting out content that your audience is listening to, or maybe it's getting pushed to the wayside. It's maybe getting buried in the audience's feed. You probably have dozens, maybe hundreds of episodes sitting idle, and you are honestly wasting some of the most valuable marketing assets right at your fingertips. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to revive that back catalog that you have and turn years worth of audio into constant streams of new leads for your current offers. Welcome to Podcasting Unlocked, the show for purpose-driven podcasters. I'm Alesia Galati, founder of Galati Media, and I'm here to share actionable strategies to help you amplify your message and grow your audience. Hey friends, it's Alesia. So excited to be here with you today. We have talked about this topic before, but I want to go a little bit deeper, and maybe sometimes we need that little reminder. And I'm finding that as I'm coming up on 300 episodes and deciding to pause this podcast, maybe I stop it fully. We'll have to see what happens. But as I'm coming up to the end of this season of this podcast and this kind of season of my life of doing this podcast, I'm trying to think about ways that I can really make the most of the content I've already created. And honestly, I think that's what I'm going to be spending the next months or years of my business doing, is just taking content from this podcast, repurposing it in different ways, talking about it in new ways, making compilations, doing something a little bit different just to make the most of the content I already have. But I think that even if you are someone who is continuing to podcast, this is a great strategy and is something that is definitely worth considering. Most podcast listeners, when we think about how podcast listeners engage with our content, a new listener finds your podcast, loves what you have to say, and then usually scrolls backwards to the first 10 episodes of your podcast and starts binge listening. Or maybe they start wherever they started and they start listening backwards from there or forwards from there, depending on where they are in your catalog. If your episodes, especially those early on episodes, contain baked in promotions for a masterclass that you did in 2024, you are sending those leads to a dead link, most likely. That is a quick and easy way to lose that potential revenue because those people are excited and that link is not working. They're not typically going to go out of their way to find out what you have going on now. So there are a few different ways that we can fix this, but also repurpose that past content and make the most of it. First and foremost is rethinking about how we approach our content. I want us to approach our podcast not as a chronological feed of start at episode 1, but instead an evergreen library. You can start by creating playlists that help people at wherever they are in their journey of what it is that you do. For example, we used to work with a client that talked a lot about boundaries. And so on her website, she has a I'm struggling with ... header. You hover over that and it says I'm struggling with, and it says boundaries with family, boundaries with a spouse, boundaries with a parent, or I'm struggling with mental health, whatever it is that that person might be struggling with. They can click on that link that then sends them to a web page on her website where she has categorized her podcast episodes, where every single episode that talks about boundaries with a parent is right there for them to listen to. They don't have to go scouring through the content. It's easy for them to binge listen to that playlist specifically. Now, that is a quick and easy way to turn that chronological feed where you're grabbing episode 5, episode 26, episode 32, maybe 10 other ones to one specific spot to help that person get the support that they need, which then is going to turn them into a potential lead a lot quicker than if they are going through all of your past content. So turning that chronological feed into an evergreen library that people can pick and choose what it is that they need from your content. Another strategy is to use dynamic ad insertion. Now, we have whole episodes about dynamic ad insertion. We'll make sure those are linked in the show notes. But really, the difference is baked in ads are ones that you talk about during the show. For example, I just mentioned that we're coming up on 300 episodes. That is very relevant for right now. If you go back to episode 2, I'm not going to be talking about how we're coming up on 300 episodes. But what if I wanted to? What if I wanted to have a ad that went back to episode 2? Maybe I am going to host a workshop in September. I actually am hosting a workshop in September. Maybe for that workshop in September, I want to make sure that the person knows that is listening to episode 2 or to episode 300 that they know that there is that workshop happening in September. So I can create an ad that goes at the beginning of every single episode. It's called a dynamic ad. I can switch it out, change it, remove it, whatever I want to do. And I can say, hey, on September, insert date here, I am going to be having a workshop talking about this, 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 and this. If you'd like to join, it's free, or maybe it's $27 to join. Go ahead and grab that at this link. Now, it doesn't matter if they're listening to episode 2, they are going to get that specific ad. Whereas if I had a baked in ad, maybe they are hearing about something that I wanted to launch in 2021 when this podcast first launched. And so I think that it's really important that when you are having a business or you have more relevant, up to date content that you want to let people know, that you use those dynamic ads to inform people. Another thing that I really like to use dynamic ads for is if there are changes to the podcast schedule or if there are breaks that are happening. So maybe at the end of a podcast episode, I say, hey, we're at the end of season 2. We're going on a break. Do not expect episodes in July or do not expect episodes in June. You can go ahead and listen to past episodes. Make sure you stay subscribed. We're going to be back on July 4th or whatever that date is. Then that helps people know as they're listening, hey, this podcast didn't just fall off the face of the earth. They are coming back. And here's when we can expect them back from their break. Or maybe you change the release date of your episodes from a Monday to a Thursday. So you say at the beginning of your podcast episodes, previously this show had been released on Mondays. That schedule has changed to Thursdays. I'm so sorry that this might have messed up your Monday mornings in listening to the podcast, but the goal really is to ensure that you get the best conversations, and Thursdays are going to work best for getting this show out. I hope you stay listening, and I can't wait to see you next Thursday. All right, that's a very easy way to let people know whether they're listening to episode 1 or episode 25 when your schedule might have changed or adjusted. So they're not looking for that episode Monday morning and then thinking that you stopped your podcast. We don't want them to do that. So there's a lot of benefits with dynamic ads. Clearly, I am a huge fan of them. Make sure you go back if you're interested in dynamic ads. Go back and listen to that episode on dynamic ad insertion. And if you're not sure where to begin or what to do, book a strategy session. Let's talk about it. We can see what might work or make sense for you for a dynamic ad insertion at this point in your business and your life. All right. So the final strategy that I want to talk about today is SEO title refreshes. Again, we have a whole episode on this, but I think that it's such an important part and worth repeating. Go back to your first 50 episodes. A lot of those podcasts are going to start with vague titles like episode 12 with Sarah Smith. That is going to get you zero search visibility unless Sarah Smith is a Pulitzer Prize winner and something big just happened. It is unlikely that you are going to get any type of traction with that title. So instead, what are ways that you can make sure that that podcast is getting the visibility that it deserves? Go back, audit your past episodes. Again, this is stuff that we do. We do podcast audits at Galati Media. I'm happy to run through your podcast content and find ways to optimize it to make sure that you literally just copy and paste it, or we have done for you services as well. But rename these things based on specific problems that are discussed in the conversation change that vague title to something like How to Manage Imposter Syndrome During a Launch with Sarah Smith, right? That is going to tell the audience a lot quicker what it is they can expect from that episode. But also, if someone is in their feed and they're typing in imposter syndrome, you want that episode to show up. New listeners do search platforms for solutions. They're not looking for episode numbers. Most of the time, they don't care about the episode numbers. So make sure that not only on your podcast host, but also on the YouTube side, you're making sure that those are optimized. And again, like I said, I can go back through, we can do the initial strategy session, get an idea of what it is that you're looking for. I can go back through and redo and refresh all the content, like the title, the show notes, any of the tags that might be needed on both your hosting platform and YouTube. Ensure that all of that is matching correctly and makes sense for the platform, because you don't want to just copy and paste your show notes over to YouTube. You want to have different things on those back ends, and ensure that it is making the most sense for your show and your content. Now, we want to make sure that when new people are searching for us, it is actually sending them to the right content. And this is going to help really establish that. So, in conclusion, let's think about these things. One, make sure that we're not letting our content go to waste. You have put so much effort and time into this stuff. Let's go ahead and make the most of it. Use those dynamic ads to update your promotional strategies to make sure that people know exactly what it is that you have going on. And then go back and rename some of those earlier episodes to match what the current search intent is for that listener. So here's what I want you to do this week. I want you to go and listen to the call to action in your 3 most downloaded episodes. Listen through. Maybe you just read through the transcript, whatever that looks like. If that offer has expired, your homework is to create some dynamic ads on your hosting platform this week and put them out there. If you're sitting on a massive library of content and you don't know how to monetize it, I'm happy to build a system with you. Go ahead and go to helpmypod.com, book a strategy session. You'll see a tab for strategy at the top. We can talk through what makes sense for your show, how to create a dynamic ad, or rename and revitalize those podcast episodes, or whatever that might look like for you. We'll go ahead and audit that back catalog and have you set up correctly for making the most of your content and potentially generating consistent leads. All right, until next time, happy podcasting.